Salutations and welcome everyone to this Trust the Prophets Preakness and Black-Eyed Susan fantasy draft. I am joined by three of my fellow draftees for this very special episode. Make sure to press that subscribe button here on YouTube, like this video, follow along with the chats if you're watching in live time. We are excited to engage with all of our fans out there. Let us know what you think of all of our picks. But I am joined today by the reigning victor of the first fantasy draft, Caleb Knight. Caleb, how are you doing today? And are you just basking in the glow of selecting a team that managed never to scratch out of the Kentucky Derby?
Yeah, I think that's actually the more impressive feat. It was that I was the only one to escape unscathed. I think Barry was down to looking on the backstretch trying to find a couple substitutions, and it was rough for
somebody just jumped in at the corner pole.
He was down at Turfway and Red Mile, seeing if they had any extras laying around.
I was going to try to run myself. I should have just jumped into the
race. You still got you're still spry, Barry. You got that. So you get out there a little bit. But listen, this was a lot of fun. Caleb just crushed it with the mage selection, obviously winning, but also, a lot of your selections ran well throughout the card. So Caleb easily won. Gino finished second. Barry finished third. I might have ended up in negative numbers, but that's neither here nor there. We'll just kind of gloss over those sorts of things. Today is a new day, and we're heading up to Preakness weekend. And Gino, I know you've been doing a lot of work on this. Black-Eyed Susan Day, Preakness Day. What are your thoughts on these 2 days together? It feels like there's a lot of really intriguing names on both of these cards.
Yeah, 6 stakes races on Friday that feature the Pimlico Special and the Black-Eyed Susan. Then on Saturday, 9 stakes races at Pimlico. And one thing that's really nice, they added a bunch of wagers, but the majority of them are low takeout wagers. A bunch of new low takeout pick fives from Friday, Saturday, that go back and forth, combining races to both days. So, hey, if they're going to add a bunch more wagers and they're lower takeout and friendlier for the players, I think that's a major positive. And, we don't have to sugarcoat it. It's a little bit of a bummer that we only have one horse running back from the Kentucky Derby a few weeks ago, but some of that had to do with what we were talking about with a lot of the scratches. We probably would have had 3 horses off the also eligibles list that might have been here if they were good, and they would have been pretty big players in this race. So it does seem like it's still a good betting weekend this weekend. And one thing, Matt, that we've noticed the last few years, what's cool about Preakness weekend, a lot of the really, really top tier sort of graded stakes horses run on Derby and Oaks Day and on the undercard. And a lot of those same horses will come back in 5 weeks for the Belmont undercard or races in that range. This weekend gets to be a fun weekend for a lot of local horses that get a chance to maybe step up into graded stakes or step up and face stakes foes that they may not normally would have. They get to be a little bit more in the spotlight. In fact, Emily Gullickson was sort of talking about how maybe they could lean into this one year and do like a claiming crown this weekend and really have some of those lower level horses in big spots.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And one of those local figures is trainer Brittany Russell, who we should mention is winning an astonishing 58% of her entries through the first. Is that bad? Okay, would you like that ROI? And by the way, she's the loser of the family, given that her husband, Sheldon Russell, is winning 67% of his mounts at Pimlico right now. Now, granted, mostly on Brittany's horses. So good connection there between those two, but just highlights the great Mid-Atlantic connection there. Listen, we got a lot of people already blowing up in the chat. Some of Caleb's buddies are here, and they're here for some of the blurry pictures for that Caleb that we posted of Caleb. We're going to get better high-resolution pictures of Caleb. Our own Colin Sheehan checking in the chat. Colin, good to see you here. Rodney hanging out with us as well today. That's pretty awesome. Rodney, thanks so much for coming out. And
hot rod.
Yeah, nice. Hot rod, absolutely. And Keith, always a good guy, each and every stride, checking in and wishing us all the best of luck. But listen, if you weren't here for the Kentucky Derby draft, it is pretty straightforward, but here's the general rules. We're going to be combining the fields because obviously with the Kentucky Derby, we had 20 horses. There were 4 of us. We could do a 5-round draft. It was no problem at all. With the Preakness, it's a little bit different because it's a smaller field, only 8 horses. But we did this last year, and we're going to do it again this year. Is we combine the Preakness and the Black-Eyed Susan field. Now we're just going to do a 4-round snake draft this time around because there's a lot of rumors that 2 Todd Pletcher horses are likely to scratch out of the Black-Eyed Susan, thus taking the total number of horses between those 2 races from 20 down to 18. We don't want people to, end up having an issue with that. So it's one of those things where, we just are going to make it a little bit shorter. So 16 of the potentially 18 horses that are running between these 2 fields are going to get selected. We did a random, Wheel of Destiny drawing beforehand. I get the first pick. Like Caleb, I'm going to complain about that in a second. Caleb gets pick number 2. Barry gets pick number 3. And then Gino is at the horn, and it's a snake draft, so it'll double back on itself in the second round. We're going to go back to typical stable duel scoring, 60 points for the winner of the race, 40 for second, 30 for third, 20 for fourth, 10 for fifth. Points deducted for margin of defeat. So if a horse loses by 2 lengths and they finish second, they would get 38 points. The winning horse in that case, winning by 2 lengths, would get 62 points. Scratches, since there are no also eligibles on either of these, there's no opportunity for replacement. So if there is a scratch from a horse that we selected, that scratch will simply receive 0 points. Fellas, I know you guys are familiar with the rules. And so with that being said, I guess we can go ahead and get started with the draft. I have the first pick, and there's a lot of consternation going back and forth over the last couple of hours. And ultimately, when looking at these 2 fields, last year I did a strategy that, looking back on it, might not have been the best, which was I just selected like every horse from the Black-Eyed Susan. I don't think I picked one horse in the Preakness. And I'll be darned, I actually got Interstate Daydream in like the 3rd round. So I got the winner, but I got a lot of negative 30s too. So, I didn't finish last, but we'll see about that strategy. But this year, with the first pick, I'm just thinking about which horse out of the likely contenders has the highest percentage chance of victory. Which horse do I feel the most strongly about? I know a lot of people are really high on Mage. I think that Preakness is maybe a little bit more of a toss-up than other people do. Therefore, my first pick is going to be Feza, who is the Bob Baffert filly coming in from the West Coast in the Black-Eyed Susan, a perfect 5 for 5. She's done absolutely nothing wrong. She's progressed every single time out with speed figures. I know a lot of people are going to point to a horse like And Tell Me No Lies, who had a little bit of a rough trip in the Kentucky Oaks, but didn't really run that well as a horse that she's been running against out west. And, the level of competition, what gives me a little less concern about that is just the dominance that she's exerted over And Tell Me No Lies the last couple of times out. Last time winning by 6.5 lengths and doing it very easily. So I'm going to select Feza just because I feel like she's in my opinion, the highest percentage win candidate from all the horses in the field. But that turns things over to Caleb, and now I just have to hope that somebody falls to me to start this at the end of the second round. So Caleb, take it away with the second pick.
All right, Matt. Yeah, good pick with Feza. I think she looks tough in there. I'm going to go back to the Preakness. I don't think the Preakness is going to be a cakewalk for anybody, but you got to dance with the girl that brought you. So Mage took me home here for the Kentucky Derby last draft, and I'm going back to the well today, taking Mage here with the second pick. I mentioned earlier, I think when we did the draft last time, is this horse had a ton of upside. I was just worried about the ability to put it all together with relatively limited starts in a big race with like the Kentucky Derby with 20 horses. And this horse still was off maybe a half step slow, but really did take that next step forward. Mm-hmm. And, that speed figure came back quickly, but I don't know that this is a horse that's lightly raced enough and has really never gone backwards per se, that I think some people are worried about a bounce. I think that's fair, but I'm not totally convinced that this horse has to go backwards off that effort. I think Mage is, kind of facing a bunch of, someone got in trouble on Twitter, so we won't go there, but some inferior rivals, to say the least. So I think that he really just has that field more or less over a barrel. Maybe one of the new shooters jumps up. I mean, there's always that possibility, but I think that Mage is a deserving favorite, and I'm not going to get too creative with the second pick.
Yeah, no, understandable. And certainly we've seen horses. I know Andy Serling pointed this out, that sometimes Kentucky Derby winners come back and run even better in the Preakness. I mean, he cited Smarty Jones as a horse that came back and ran probably his best career race in the Preakness on 2 weeks rest. So turning back around, not a problem. Now, next up is Sniper, but I will say, Sniper, your reputation precedes you for picking long shots, as Colin is wondering if you're going to go with Coffee with Chris in the number 1 pick in the first round. But you're always good for a curveball, but I'm interested. I mean, there's a lot of interesting horses, I think, on the board. Where are you going to go with your first round pick?
I'm going to go to the Preakness because I think there's some question marks because of the small field. I think it becomes I don't know how to say this right, but like a quote unquote regular race.
Mm.
You know, it's more predictable than the Derby is with the 20 horse field and everything else. That being said, I'm going to go with First Mission. I think this horse is going to sit a great trip. I'm hoping that, you know, Mage kind of in his sort of fashion breaks slow, and that might open things up for, you know, horses like National Treasure has some speed, but First Mission is probably going to get a great trip from the outside. You know, there's plenty of run up there for him to get in a good spot, stalking spot behind the speed, and kind of stalk and pounce, and hopefully that gets it done.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, the First Mission obviously has a lot of speed. That track last year was very speed favoring on big days, as Pimlico tends to be. We've already seen that early in this year's meet. I think 60% of dirt runners the first weekend were first or second at first call, and second call, I should say. So, you know, obviously a lot of speed favor there. Reminds me a lot of last year with early voting. I remember I was kind of against that horse until I was there at the track and saw the speed bias, and I was like, I am putting all my money on early voting now.
Yeah, after Lightning Larry won,
yes,
I was like, yeah, early vote is going to have a real big shot.
Yep, it's so
Wasn't
funny.
there like one race where there was passing, and it was
the
horse who
Dwayne
scratched
Lucas. It
from
was
the Derby,
Lucas, yeah,
right?
Ethereal Road.
Ethereal Road.
It was the only one that passed. That
Only
the whole
one.
Day. Yep.
Yeah, only one where anybody passed. And it's so funny, Barry, because it was that Lightning Larry race and I even cited that the other day on a video I did. I was like, yeah, Lightning Larry won, and I was like, well, the hell with this. And so it was, you know, things all of a sudden changed. So we're going to fall back down now to the last pick in the first round. Gino, where are you going to go with this final pick in the first round, and then first pick in the second round?
Yeah, with things going formful, there's a massive drop off, in my opinion, after the top three picks. Just from as far as like safe, feeling really good, because I think First Mission's got a big shot in the Preakness. The next horse who I'm going to have to pick is National Treasure, who I don't even really like that much, honestly. Just sort of based on process of elimination, like he's going to be the strong third choice in the Preakness. He will be forwardly placed. He's either going to be on the lead, or Coffee with Crisp goes and he sits right behind him from the inside. And when I watched this horse earlier in the year, I kept telling myself, you know, the way he runs, I thought he was going to be a pretty nice horse to use in the Derby, because he has sort of a grinding style where he just sort of keeps coming at you. He did miss time, and he missed the San Felipe because of a foot bruise. And in the Santa Anita Derby, he's kind of, if you watch the end of the race, he's kind of coming a little bit late again too. And he has a decent gallop out. So, you know, I really wanted First Mission. Barry sniped me on that one, because that's the horse I really wanted. If I had first overall pick, I would have picked First Mission. So I'm going to go National Treasure from the Preakness. And then what I'll do is I'll go one of each. I feel like National Treasure, I'll get a good run for my money in that small field, because kind of after National Treasure too, then again, another drop off, because now we're really starting to project with some of these horses who are going to have to improve a bunch to compete with those top three just based on speed figures. Yeah. In the Black-Eyed Susan after FISA, well, then it's a pretty big drop off. So what I'll do is I'll go with Merlaza, who I like in there. Very honest, has not done much wrong at all. So I'll go with my two, National Treasure and Merlaza.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. I mean, it's so funny. I have ranked the 20 horses, 18 horses before we got started today, and the first 5 that I've ranked are all gone now. So that was it.
Like,
does feel
very hit this right. This is different than the Derby, because these are more normal races. The way you handicap them, the way you think the pace shapes up. So it's not quite as cute. In the Belmont, I bet it'd be a little bit different too, because I bet there's a few people who think horses will get better going longer and others won't handle the distance. So it might be a little bit more creative in that race. Yeah, absolutely. And then you have the Acorn, which is a one-turn race. And so like that's also a little bit of a different dynamic for the fillies. So you never know how it's going to turn out. But listen, apparently this is a good pick. Shadi very much so likes this, because she says, I guess I'm now Team Gino. So nice. The Merlaza pick has gotten you some fans. Love to see that. Sniper comes back around to you in the second round. Where are you going to go with your second round selection?
I'm going to go to the Black-Eyed Susan, and I'm going to take a horse that I think is on the rise here, and I'm going to take number 1, Sacred Wish.
Damn. All right.
I think this horse ran pretty good first time in graded stakes company last time.
Yeah.
In the GP Oaks.
Yep.
And I think this horse can get better. Was outside that day, was 3-4 wide, a lot of the way, moves into the George Weaver barn for the first time, ran pretty damn good. And I think this horse is going to be a lot closer up than she was last time. And I think that sets her up for a pretty good trip here.
I'm not happy at all with your selection because I completely agree with it. And I was really hoping Sacred Wish would fall to me. I had her right behind Merlaza in this race. I completely agree with your analysis. I think she gets off better, especially from the rail. It's interesting that Velasquez has both the rail and the Black-Eyed Susan and the Preakness, and with two kind of very similar, I don't want to say similar horses, but similar dynamics where they both probably are going to want to get out and be very forwardly placed in both instances with National Treasure and Sacred Wish. But yeah, I agree. And the pedigree would suggest she's going to like a lot more distance too. So yeah, with not this time up top. And yeah. So Caleb, circling back to you, where are you going to go with your second round selection?
I'm going to keep the girl power train going here and stay in the Black-Eyed Susan.
Yep.
I'm going to go to a horse on the outside that I don't know how many short list she'll be on, but I'm going to number 10, Taxed. This is a filly who, so I think is just circling up to a big race in here. I'm a bit of a, Sheets player, form cycle guy. And I think that she got down to a good one, 3 back in the Martha Washington at Oaklawn.
Yep.
Wasn't any match for Wet Paint, but that's a race where, Wet Paint came from way off and, relished the slop or the off going, and she was just better that day. And that's fine. Wet Paint was the favorite in the Oaks. The Honeybee came up very sloppy, and she just clearly didn't handle the track at all compared to the, just wet, fast, sealed surface she caught prior to that. But in the fantasy, she got back to that Martha Washington number, which was a good figure in here. I mean, one of the fastest figs in the race. And, I always like to see that when they, run the top, go backwards a little bit and then pair up to that top again. I think she's sitting on a forward move in here. She did have a little bit of trouble in that last race, ran a little bit of a Z pattern where she kind of started 4th, dropped back to 6th, and then finished up 2nd. So I think Tax is sitting on a big race in here. I do think after Feza, it feels kind of wide open. So I'm not afraid to kind of take an outsider in here. So I think Tax makes some sense.
Yeah, I think Taxed is a very good horse, and I'll say I think Tax is an outstanding horse to use in stable duel contests as well. I think that morning line is off at 15-1, and you're getting, I think, a really good horse for a very small amount of price in terms of building your stable. So people out there who are playing on Preakness Day on stable duel, I definitely encourage you to use a horse like Taxed in this type of a spot. So I think that's a horse that might not cost you very much, but can give you a big return on investment in this race. So things have circled back down to me, and indeed the top 6 choices have already been taken. I had Taxed a little further down, but not that much further down. And so, yeah, because I went with the Black-Eyed Susan in the first round, I'll probably circle back and go with the Preakness here. And with back-to-back picks, I will go with the Shug McGahee horse Perform as my next selection in the second round. This is a horse that obviously had a thrilling victory last time out in the Tessio, coming from, had a bad break and was kind of found himself in a position that he usually is not. He's usually a little bit more forwardly placed, but found himself coming from behind and just had an amazing ride by Fergal Lynch, who stays on the mount here for the Preakness. And the thing that's so interesting to me about Perform is, yes, this horse took a long time to break its maiden, but you go back and look at the names this horse was running against in the maiden special weight ranks, and it's like a who's who of the Kentucky Derby in a lot of ways. Like Disarm's in there, Mage is in there, even going back to last year, like Lost Ark, who was a big time Todd Pletcher horse, was in there. There's a lot of good horses that he's been running against. He finally went up to Tampa, caught a softer field, broke his maiden, and then went to up to Laurel and really, won back-to-back races and showed a little bit of progression. Listen, I think everybody, after the ones that have already been selected in the Preakness, you're taking a little bit of a flyer on. I think at this point, I'm So I'm going to go with Perform because I think Perform's going to sit a more forward trip than he did in the Tessio, and I think that's going to be beneficial to him. So I'll go with him as my selection in the second round, and then for my first pick in the third round, this is where I start. Do I start boxing myself in with certain selections? I just am not necessarily convinced with a couple of these other horses. But I will go with, you know what? I'm gonna, oh geez. All right. I'll go with Hoosier Philly. Because yeah, which is not what I wanted to do at all. And yeah. And here's my logic on Hoosier Philly is she had the same throat surgery that Pretty Mischievous had that cleared the airwaves and cleared out her esophagus and should make it easier for her to breathe. I don't know. I'm not good enough to diagnose things when they're taking place on the track or anything like that. But the way that she kind of stopped the last couple of times out and fatigued late, I think is, it's just kind of interesting. And I think this surgery and this procedure might benefit her. Listen, maybe she's only good on the workout track because on the workout track, good Lord, she's impressive. I mean, she's putting out 58 and 4 or 5 furlong work. So she clearly feels good. There is a race in there for her. I'm kind of talking myself into it. And I'm not that sold on Red Route 1 and Blazing Sevens in the Preakness. That's my issue. And so as a result, I'm going to probably reach a little bit just because I'm not going to pick again for a while. And so I'll go with Hoosier Philly in the Black-Eyed Susan. But now, Caleb, you can take a pick and probably make me regret my decision immediately. So where are you going to go in the third round?
Yeah, no, I mean, I almost chuckled when you picked Hoosier Philly, but I didn't know about the surgery. So that's, you learn something new watching this stream.
There you go.
That being said, so right now I kind of have a 1-1 split here with the Preakness and Black-Eyed Susan. I view the next contingent of the Black-Eyed Susan very similarly. So I'm actually going to go back to the Preakness. Also, the field size, I think, kind of benefits taking some shots in the Preakness a little bit. And I'm going to go with the horse who I think has to run his race. I don't think this horse can win necessarily, but I'm going to go with Blazing Sevens. I know you guys thought I was going to say Red Route 1, but I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go with Blazing Sevens. I mean, this is a horse that was a very promising 2-year-old. Something went wrong in the Fountain of Youth in the return, but Chad Brown was clearly not deterred by throwing him into a grade 1 next time out. And he ran a good race. The race actually came back pretty quick. He basically paired up his 2-year-old top. And I think to me, that's reassuring that this horse still has ability, still has talent. And I feel extremely confident this horse is going to run a good race. Now, Can this horse win? I'm not so sure about that. I'm not totally convinced that 1 mile and 3/16 is really what this colt wants to do. But I definitely like the fact that he was pointed to this race after the Bluegrass. They didn't rush to try to put him into the Kentucky Derby. He's coming in fresh. I wasn't sure if early voting could get the distance for that matter. And last year, Chad Brown worked some magic there. So I think Blazing Sevens is sitting on a good race. He'll have to overcome a bit of a maybe disadvantageous pace scenario in here, but I'm going to take Blazing Sevens.
But can he beat 4 horses?
Right? Yeah,
like that's where
there's at least 2,
right? Like that's where you're sitting at here, and he has better speed figures than half of the field, even though he's not been the best 3-year-old. He was a good 2-year-old, and he hasn't taken the step forward. But those are all things like, again, it kind of gets me back to what Barry was saying, like some of these misconceptions or these notions we have about the Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont. You can't really use them this year in this race. Like there's only one Derby horse. There's a lot of horses that don't have very high speed figures. There's not a lot of horses that are all that proven. So some of those things that your biases or things that you might have thought, you kind of have to throw them out the window.
Yeah. And what I'll say is, by the way, a couple minutes ago, my integrity has been completely eroded. So El Hombre just, crushing me for the Hoosier Philly pick. I get it, folks. It's one of those where as soon as it came out of my mouth,
after me over Continuar, man.
Yeah, no,
I'm still getting messed
up. The peanut gallery is tough over there. They're throwing stuff, man. I'm ducking it. Yeah,
tomatoes.
I love it. So, Listen, Caleb, you took Blazing Sevens. Barry, you're next up in the third round. Where are you going to go with this one?
I'm gonna stay in the Black-Eyed Susan lane, and
Okay.
I think this race has quite a bit of speed in it.
Mm-hmm.
And a horse, the one that I'm gonna pick is the 8 Ball Pool.
Yep.
I think this horse is just getting better, and I don't really believe that this horse really wants to be as close up as she's been. You know, gotten better every time. I mean, you see her 6 or 5 races, and she's definitely gotten better every single time, stretching out on a sloppy surface. Got it done last time. I don't think the extra 8th is going to make too much of a difference. Being out of uncaptured Take Charge Lady mare, Take Charge Indy mare, training well, go-to rider. They're going to take a shot, and I think this is a good spot for this horse.
Yeah, absolutely. No, a horse that is absolutely ascending. I mean, Gino, you talked about projecting a little bit once you start getting into this next tier of horses, and Balpool, I feel, is a horse that does project very well in terms of trending in the right direction, and certainly could take that step forward. And yeah, it's funny, the Black-Eyed Susan does feel a little bit like last year's Derby, where the entire field wants to sit second and third, and you're like, well, not everybody is going to be able to sit second and third, and so does this push too aggressive of a pace, and does that then open things up for horses coming from a little bit behind? So Gino, where are you going to go with your final 2 picks? Actually, last pick in the third round, first pick in the last one.
He got me again. That probably would have been my next that probably been one of my next 2 picks with Balpool. But I will say, at this point of the draft, I'm very fine with Red Route 1 falling to me at this point, because I know what I'm going to get from him. If the race shape is too slow, then he won't come closing, and he won't pass as many horses, and he won't win the race. But can he pass Chase the Chaos, Coffee with Chris, Perform, and Blazing Sevens? Sure. I think that's very logical and probably likely. And then it comes down to one of the top 3 horses. If National Treasure goes a little bit too quick early on, can he go by this horse? Sure. I could very, very much see him running third in this race. I think that could be like a good third or a good 4th coming late, and then people all talk about wanting to play him in the Belmont.
Right? No, absolutely. Everybody, and by the way, Shoddy is now a super fan of your team, so you have gotten
shots, Shoddy, shots tonight.
So, no, Red Route 1 is a horse that, because of his running style and because of his pedigree, quite frankly, I think a lot of people have suggested is that Belmont horse, that, just give him more and more ground. Just give him more and more ground. He almost gets there. And he finally got there last time out in the Bathhouse Row Stakes. And Joel, I'm not sure you can fit a rider onto a horse much better than Joel onto Red Route 1. Yeah.
Perfect.
So,
it's like a perfect fit for
just
closing.
We'll give you that brilliant type of ride. So where are you going to go with your last selection, Gino?
I believe I'm going to go back to the Black-Eyed Susan, and Matt, I'm going to look for my horse who's going to be in that group of 8 that are all sitting second and third.
Don't you know?
The number 7 Comparative, who, just sort of looking at who's left on the board right now. Comparative is in nice form, has won back-to-back races. So I'll give Comparative a little bit of a look, a horse who's shown some improvement. Honestly, you kind of dive into her overall form. Mm-hmm. She has like 1 bad race in her entire career. She wasn't quite as good as some others early, but her first 3 races, she's finishing third and 4th. She was actually favored in the race over Towhead. Then there was a race on an off track. You can just put a line right through it. And then her next 3 races are a 3rd place finish against Maiden Specials, and then back-to-back victories. So she's heading in the right direction. I'm going to give Comparative a look.
There you go. I like that play. I know our own Colin Sheehan really liked that horse a lot. That was his top value play for this particular race. And I think of Brad Cox filly, it's hard to sometimes go wrong in that direction, obviously on a big day. And the similar argument you made with some other horses, can Comparative, outfinish 4 or 5 other horses in this field? Probably. And in that case, you're getting some potential value underneath. Barry, where are you going to go with your last selection here in the 4th round?
I got quite a bit of Black-Eyed Susan horses. And I mean, at this point, there's not much left. I'm going to go with number 2. I'm going to go with 2 Pate. That horse actually isn't really all that bad. It's just a question of.
Don't you
distance.
love how we all start doing this when we get a
We
horse?
like talking ourselves in. It's like, hey, this
Hey,
looks
let me
okay.
build that cake. I
The
love
worst
the
for the
tone.
10th pick in the field.
I
like-
love the tone in our voice. How we all of a sudden are the biggest fans of these horses that we didn't want at all earlier.
I mean, I've seen Mike Maker pull things like this off in the past.
Well, that's true.
You have
Yeah.
horses that run well in these kind of spots, and this field isn't overwhelming by any means. I mean, if you can just just concede the race to Feza, beyond that, like Caleb was saying earlier, it's pretty wide open, and a lot of crazy stuff happens. I mean, look at how many times in the Preakness where we'd see it like a semi-favorite win and a huge long shot suck up for third, and it happens like almost every year.
Mhm.
Pate's kind of one of those sort of horses. Gets a local rider, which is a plus in my book.
Mhm.
And why not give it a shot? He'll pass some horses late, and not keep it under 30.
Keep it on, yeah. I keep it under 30. Yes, keep the red numbers at a minimum. So love it. Caleb, how are you going to screw me with your last selection? Because I feel like there's a very obvious, there might be some obvious choices here. So I'm interested where you're going to go here.
The only horse that I have out of the do not draft tier on my spreadsheet right now is Towhead, the number 12.
Can it, Caleb?
This is the only horse that I would rather think maybe it's a chance to not get a 30 burger. And I'll be honest, I think this is a nice filly. Like, I liked her in a couple of those Oaklawn races, including that 1-3 back. If she can find a way back to that race, she sort of fits in here. My only concern with her is that race sort of is the only race on her page that that does fit in here, and it was pretty much her only race on Lasix. So I'm not sure if she just maybe is a slightly better horse on Lasix. Maybe she just kind of regressed off that big effort in her last two. Maybe it was the slop, but it's hard to argue that her form cycle is going the wrong way. But she's one of the only horses left that has ran a race that would guarantee she hits the board if she can get back to that effort 3 back. So I'll take a shot here with Towhead, maybe getting forward position and just holding on for a piece.
I cannot argue with you at all. That was going to be my selection if you had not selected Towhead. And I'm very disappointed now with the selections that I have left. And this is why I should not have picked Hoosier Philly in the 3rd round. I was thinking ahead immediately as soon as I regretted that decision. But anyway, so just to let people know out there who are the final 5, if you will, or the horses that are left. So obviously it's Coffee with Chris. Frosty O'Toole and Miracle are the 2 horses that it's been speculated are going to scratch from the Black-Eyed Susan. That's why none of us have selected those 2. I was really high on Frosty O'Toole actually in this particular race prior to that news coming out. So that was a horse I did really like. But obviously with those 2 potentially out or likely out, it really is now down to the final 3 of Coffee with Chris, Chase the Chaos, and Cats in the Timber.
I was starting to make case for Miracle the last couple days too. That horse was favored in the Gulfstream Park Oaks.
Yeah, and ran a huge race against Pretty Mischievous in the Rachel Alexandra too. Yeah, and just got nabbed at the wire by Pretty Mischievous. So no, that really sucks.
They're running at Belmont, I think they said, right? They're running the race this weekend at Belmont.
I believe so. Yeah. So unfortunate to see that. That does reduce the size of the Black-Eyed Susan field from 12 to 10. It does move a horse like Feza. I think that's kind of interesting. Feza drew the 9 hole. Actually, it's going to move her in. I mean, she'll still be number 9, but is going to be breaking from essentially 7 out instead of 9 out. So not going to be quite as far out. Some of those horses to keep in mind. Listen, Chase the Chaos has just regressed every single time out. It feels like since that El Camino Real Stakes. I think that's a horse that is more a synthetic horse and not really for the dirt. And Cats in the Timber, listen, I like Brittany, but I'm not that. I can't do it. And so as a result, the only horse that's left is Coffee with Chris. And what I'll say about this horse is it's at least speed, right? And the horse is going to be out on the front end. We know that. We know that speed is typically beneficial at Pimlico. I think this horse, it doesn't have the goods to be able to go gate to wire, and obviously, may not, probably doesn't even hit the board, but at least it's going to be on a track that's speed favoring in all likelihood. Maybe that carries this horse a little bit closer to the finish line, better than they would maybe on a fair track. Maybe some of those closers aren't able to close quite as much. I don't know.
The only horse that has a win at Pimlico in the whole field.
It's true. It's
Nobody
true.
Else
Yeah,
has a win. Exactly. I love that.
Horse for course. Well said.
I love it.
So Coffee with Chris will be my final selection there. And so
it's not
that,
your
that
selection. You were stuck with it. No, you actually. This time we had two others, so you do have a selection. It's not like when you're picking teams at school and that last person's there. You know what Rachel said in Friends. You didn't pick me, Ross. You're stuck with me. You know.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. And so it was. We had a couple of choices there, and ultimately ended up going with Coffee with Chris there as my play. So we had. Let's just recap the teams. So my team is regrettably Feza, Perform, Hoosier Philly, and Coffee with Chris. Caleb's got Mage, Taxed, Blazing Sevens, and Towhead. Barry's got First Mission, Sacred Wish, Balpool, and Pate. And Gino's got National Treasure, Merlaza, Red Route 1, and Comparative. And so Gino and Caleb both have, myself, Gino, and Caleb all have 2 from each race. And then Barry, you have 3 from the Black-Eyed Susan and 1 from the Preakness in terms of First Mission. So how's everybody feeling about their teams? Caleb, I'll go to you first. How are you feeling about the redraft of Mage and getting taxed and horses like that?
I feel generally good about it. I was hoping to get a 2-2 split. I didn't want to do 3-1 if I could avoid it, unless I, drafted something crazy that fell to me. So I think I have, a very likely winner, if not, exact finisher with Mage, who I think just is going to show up. I got some risk at the Black-Eyed Susan, Taxed and Towhead. I am high on Taxed. There's obviously a risk that she could finish up the track as well as Towhead. So I got to navigate some risk there, but I feel that my team does have upside anyway.
There you go. All about upside. Barry, how are you feeling about this one? No Continue this time around, but how are you feeling about your team?
Yeah, much to the chagrin of Colin Shaheen. I didn't throw one downfield really. I think I'm okay with my team. Just if First Mission wins, I could probably get a couple of seconds and thirds and in the Black-Eyed Susan and win this thing. So I'm feeling good.
No, I mean First Mission feels like a horse that's also a little bit like Mage. I don't think that horse is going to run a bad race.
No, not in this.
No, he looks really good. The field is not as good as obviously as the Derby, and it looks like a 2-horse race on paper. But things happen.
It's one of those things where if we would have talked like a month ago when he won the Lexington on April the 15th, if you would have said this is the horse who you think will win the Preakness, I would have said no way. But based on who shows up, who's in the field, how it's going to shape up, he's got the most upside, I think, by far. Because if Mage did sort of peak and he regresses a little bit just on the 2-week turnaround and First Mission has one more step up, he could absolutely do it. Now, Mage could still regress and win this race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. That's absolutely true.
He doesn't need to improve again. He can regress and come right back to just about where he was in the Florida Derby. That's probably still good enough to win. I think if I would have traded with anyone, it probably would have been Barry, just because how high I am on First Mission. I would have taken him in the Preakness and then just taken my shots with 3 others in the Black-Eyed Susan. But I feel pretty good about where I was in the draft with what I was able to get, because I have a pretty good floor. My ceiling isn't as high, but with National Treasure and Red Route Run, they could both be in the top 4 in the Preakness, like very easily. I could pick up points right there. And then we have Merlaza on the other side. So I could have 3 of my 4 in the money, I think. Yeah. But easily here. So I may not have a winner, but I feel pretty good about the that floor for my 4.
Yeah, and I think, obviously I feel good about Feza in there. I think Perform's a horse that I am high on underneath. I think, is a horse that I feel like could probably maybe hit the board and, probably finish 4th in all likelihood, something along those lines. Listen, Hoosier Philly is a shot in the dark. I think that's a horse that's boom or bust. It could be a -30. I think she has the ability, if she can put things together, to run underneath. Caleb, I just heard about the procedure 2 days ago. And so I had not heard about that either. And when I heard about that, I thought, well, that kind of makes some sense as to why this horse might have not been running up to how she looked as a 2-year-old and maybe how she even trains on the workout track. And I just, there are some horses, we all know this. There are some horses that in the mornings look dynamite. And then come race time, they just don't show up. And maybe she's one of those. And if so,
like
she's going to get me well, that's the truth. And if so, she's going to get me a big -30, and that's okay. And
it's great for us.
Yeah, no, it is great. It's great for you guys.
The other three of us. Yeah.
And with Coffee with Chris, hey, it's all about speed bias, baby. So let's and horse for course. Let's go 2-0 at Pimlico. So that's how we'll go there. Listen, I know you guys all got a lot going on this week. So Caleb, what do you guys have going on? And On the Wrong Lead, what are you guys doing this week?
We might talk Belmont or something. I don't know. But yeah, we'll be on tomorrow night, Thursday at 8:30 Eastern as usual. We'll be covering both Friday and Saturday, all on Thursday stream. So come check us out at On the Wrong Lead, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you catch your normal live streams.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't tell people enough to make sure to do that. One of my favorite things to do is watch. And I also appreciate you and all the other guys coming on the marathon StreamYard of the live stream of the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks Day.
That was impressive, Matty. That was impressive on your
Iron Man.
Very.
Yeah. I can talk all freaking day. So that was the easy part for me. Gino, you have 18,000 things going on, but tell folks about like at least a quarter of them.
Only 18,000?
I was gonna say, yeah, we tapered it down a little bit for the Preakness. We'll pick it back up for the Belmont. But actually, we're gonna record our weekly Stable Duel show a day early this week. We're going to record it tomorrow, and we'll probably play it right after that. I think probably in like the 7:00-ish Eastern time range. We'll probably play it around then, just so that way people can see it a little bit before, because they're big games this weekend for Friday and for Saturday. It's fun. This is the only one of the Triple Crown races where Stable Duel gets to have big contests. So for both Friday and for Saturday, we're going to focus on those 2 days. Myself, Barry, and Matt will each give out a couple plays, all prices, all 5-1 and up. It'll be the no chalk zone. We'll have that tomorrow. I'll have my normal podcast out this week. Angela Herman joined me to talk about the 3 races leading up to the Preakness and then the Preakness itself. So those 4 races on Saturday, races 10 through 13. So I'll have that out on the podcast, NBA stuff. Also this week in wrestling. So this will be a really big fun show with a ton of content.
Excellent. Barry did me the Crying Jordan memes wrong with the 76ers over the weekend. That was rough. And by the way, as soon as they won Game 5, I had called my dad. I was like, they're going to lose Game 6 and 7. This is going to happen.
They're built for that, right? That group of players is built for it.
I have to say, like, I know the 70. I am a Philadelphia fan, and if things could go wrong, they go wrong. And so the Crying Jordan meme is very appropriate all the time. But Barry, Chuck Simon,
coach too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I knew Doc was out I knew Doc was out at the beginning of the year. If they didn't make the Eastern Conference Finals. So but you got a lot going on. You're always doing stuff with Chuck Simon, going in circles, big Mondays. What else do you have going on this week, or where are you going to be?
Doing the thing tomorrow with you guys.
Yeah.
Also with the Notorious OTB on probably tomorrow, I think too. Also, nice. Spreading it a little thin, but we got those 2 things coming up, and then obviously the stuff on the weekend. Then we'll wrap it up on Monday on our podcast. So, I'll be around. You'll see me. Trust me.
Barry's around. He'll be dropping that Friday morning dancing GIF that everybody.
loves. Always. I already got it queued up. I already made the video. It's already ready.
Fantastic. I just want to say, Shadi, I'm glad you like the, having a lot of different guests on the show. That's something we absolutely always try to do here on Trust the Profits, bring on different people, different voices, and glad that we could introduce you to 3 really sharp minds from a handicapping perspective. And listen, Rodney, I love you, brother, but I am not going to be doing that live stream again on Friday and Saturday for the Black-Eyed Susan and the Preakness, partially because I will be at the Black-Eyed Susan on Friday. So I will be there at Pimlico and probably complaining about the conditions of the track for most of the day.
From the venue.
I could just Yeah,
all
I'll
day
talk to
long.
everybody
You
there.
got interviews. You can do interviews.
Yeah, I'll
Hey,
just
oh,
I'll
man,
reach over and get Claudia and get
Have
I'll
pics.
get
There you
everybody.
go.
Yeah.
Get everybody.
No, we'll
Next time.
Matt goes to the bathroom on accident and he's still live streaming right on his phone. It's just like everybody needs a break for a second.
It could go very wrong. But listen, I got capping the card for the Black-Eyed Susan Day dropping tomorrow morning. So I go races 1 through 14, top pick, top value play for that. And then on Friday morning,
Who joined you this week for capping?
So for capping the card, no, I did it solo for Black-Eyed Susan Day, but for Preakness Day, Ashley Mayu from TVG, FanDuel TV, she joined me, and join me. She will join me. We're gonna record it tomorrow, and that'll drop on Friday. So Ashley's always great, and she even, God bless her, she handicapped the Arabian race at the very end of the card. And I wrote to her, I said, you don't have to handicap the Arabian race, and she goes, oh, I already capped it. And I was like, all right, well, I guess now I have to handicap it. So crap. I was hoping to avoid that, but it should be a lot of fun. And yeah, everybody out there, thanks so much for tuning in. Fellas, thank you so much for doing this. We're going to come back in 3 weeks, do it again for the Belmont and Acorn. And that should be a lot of fun. And hopefully, maybe there'll be a new winner. Maybe Caleb will reign supreme and try to go for the Triple Crown. But either ways, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. Have a safe weekend. Remember, I hope you have a great day at the track and that is quite profitable. And until next time, it's now post time.